to build this.
All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Thursday of Greece. We're going to continue on with our explorations of Greece this week. And today, Jesse has returned to us. Good morning, Jesse, or Kalimera, right? Is that correct?
Kalimera, exactly.
And we also have with us Basiliki, who comes up to us live from the island of Naxos in Greece. Kalimera.
Kalimera. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. So today what we're going to do is that Jesse actually is going to host the conversation. I'm going to just be in the background, and I'll pop in every now and then if I've got a question for you guys. But what we would like to talk about today is about the Greek islands, because I would say I've been to Greece, but the most mystical kind of thing is the idea of going out to the islands. But that just feels really intimidating to me, even as an experienced traveler. Like, how do I choose? There are thousands of islands you could choose from, right? I mean, how do I even decide which islands to go to? How do I get there? What do I even do once I get there? I just don't, it kind of makes even my tour guide brain turn into soup when I start thinking about the Greek islands, because there's just too many options, too much to choose from. So I thought today what would be really interesting and especially helpful for everybody watching is if we kind of talk about travel planning. How do we plan a trip to the Greek islands? And having somebody who runs a Greek tour company and somebody who is a local guide on a Greek island seems like a great place to start. So Jesse, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Great. Well, thanks, Sarah. And I guess actually, Kalispera to you, Basiliki. It's the evening there. We were just commenting as we got started here how marvelous this technology is, which makes it look as if I'm sitting here on the island of Naxos with the gate of Apollo behind me. But let's just start there, Basiliki. We can maybe start with Sarah's question, which is how do we get to the Greek islands? And maybe, or actually, we take it one step back. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You're on the island of Naxos, and where is that exactly? What is that a part of in the Greek islands, and how could we get there?
So, Kalimera to everybody from me. My name is Basiliki. You can call me Vicky to make your lives a little bit easier, I think. I'm a licensed tourist guide, which means that I have graduated from the special school of guides, because in Greece, in order to get your license to guide, you have to go to the university about 16 years ago in Athens. So I have served my life between Athens and Naxos. Both of my parents were born in Naxos. I was born in Athens like most of the children at my age, because there is no hospital to give birth to a child in Naxos. So everybody has to come to Athens in order to give birth to a baby. Things are much easier though now, because people can travel easier to the islands, I can say. You can imagine that back in the 80s, it was more for backpacking. It was more for hippies. But now it's all very well organized. You can fly from Athens, since that you are asking about the access. You can fly from several European cities. You can take the regular ferry, which is about 5 hours, or the high-speed ferry, which is something less than 3 hours. And there is the access of helicopters. There is a very easy connection between the islands as well. So it's easier for people like me that studied in Athens and started their career in Athens to go back to the island that they originally come from, because now we have more opportunities to do things that is not just tourism, and we can have, let's say, a life that is more excited in winter time too, because winter is a little bit difficult on the islands. I don't know if you are familiar with the Greek weather. Last week it was snowing. So the snow reached the beach, something that doesn't happen very often. In Naxos, it snows every year, but on the mountains. So you can imagine that it was a very difficult access with the very strong winds and the snow and the snowstorm. So you have to stay on an island isolated for more than 4 or 5 days.
That reminds me of where I grew up. I grew up in Prince Edward Island in Canada. And I saw another friend of mine was telling me that in Athens last week, they actually called in the military because there was, I think he told me, a half a meter of snow. I mean, it was, which is an immense quantity of snow for a place that doesn't regularly get snow, and that it completely shut things down. Now, you mentioned that there are mountains on Naxos, and it's a part of the Cycladic Islands, right? Mm-hmm. So what are those? What are the Cycladic Islands? What does that mean?
Well, if you have on your mind the map of Greece, Greece is like a peninsula. So it has land borders only on the north, okay? The rest of it is the sea. So now our west, we have the Ionian Sea, which is our borders to Italy. On our south, we have the Libyan Sea, which is our borders to Africa. And on our east, we have the Aegean Sea, which is our borders to Turkey. The Cycladic Islands is a complex of 28 islands that are exactly in the heart of the Aegean Sea. And they are called as the Cycladic because Kyklos in Greek means the circle. So they are making a circle around the island of Delos. That was the holy island for the ancient Greeks because this is where God Apollo was supposed to be born. So the gate behind you, the great gate that people can see, is actually one of the gates of the Temple of Apollo in Naxos that is facing the island of Delos, because these temples were created with this orientation, to face the island where God Apollo was born. The island of Delos is an island where you cannot stay. It is an archaeological site. It is the biggest archaeological site in Europe and the second biggest in the world. So people are going there for a few hours visit, no hotels, just a small cafe. And then you take the boat and you either go to Mykonos, that is very close, Paros, or Naxos, that are the closest to the island of Delos.
That's actually why we originally decided that we were going to go to Naxos. Now, we discovered some other really wonderful things that we'll talk about here, but I have to pause to highlight the wonderful kind of symbolism there, and because for me, Greece is a place really of the imagination where reality mixes with myth, and it's very hard to tell the difference between metaphor and reality. And so I love this image of kind of looking through the gate towards Delos, which, as you say, what is a sacred island. And this is what caught my imagination about it, is that it's not just a historic archaeological site, but even today, no one is allowed to live there. And that was a law, I think, that was imposed, or even actually in very ancient days. It's been that way for thousands of years. And for those who don't know, Apollo is the god of knowledge, and he's represented, his arrows are represented by really the rays of the sun, and because of course that's sort of the way, again, to speak in metaphor, or to kind of mix metaphor with our own ways of knowing. That's kind of the way understanding operates, right? It kind of illuminates the mind. And so it's such a beautiful image to have the sun pouring through the gate to kind of give us both direction, but open us towards a new vista. And of course, the ancient Greeks were very intentional about that. So anyway, that's why that was originally what brought us to Naxos, was this idea of sharing this sacred experience. Now, we're on the trip we're doing, because that really is a full day trip. We thought, well, we'll let folks do that on their own. But how did those, when you were growing up, here's a question for you. When you were a little girl on the island of Naxos, did you know the Greek myths?
Of course. This is the first things that you learn as a child. First of all, for us, it's the Greek myths, and then it is Snow White or Cinderella. These fairy tales come much later. But have on your mind that our Greek mythologies are our names, like Helen, the Helen of Troy, okay, the War of Troy. It is the names of the places that we live, like the Aegean Sea, King Aegean. So they are all related to myths. So in order to learn your history, the history of your name, the history of the place that you live, you need Greek mythology. Okay, for the ancient Greeks, this was their religion. So it is something quite important. And then when you are in a place that no matter where you go, you see ruins, okay, you see mountains that are very beautiful. Naxos has the highest mountains on the Cyclades, and they are so impressive that people knew that they are the highest mountains on the Cyclades. And that's why they were saying that this was the area where god Zeus was born and raised. And this was also the area where god Dionysus, or Vakos, the god of wine, was raised. So you can imagine that all the gods are related to the harvest. And agriculture is something that is very important to us. Even if you are not a farmer yourself, you participate in the harvest because it is something that has to do with the whole community. Okay, it is something that doesn't have to do only with business. It is the time that the family is getting together in order to help other families, harvesting the olive trees, making wine, and then there are other occasions that we drink wine. So in all these cases, you speak about the gods, you speak about the ancient Greek mythology, because all this is related to our everyday life. And this is what made me a guide, actually. Because in order to become a guide, you study archaeology, but there is a big difference. In archaeology, you dig for the past. As a guide, you communicate, you address to the people the everyday life of actual times, of now, and how this is related to the oldest customs. This has
Sarah,
always been...
I'm sorry, Basiliki, I just got to say, Sarah, I mean, you see why I love this country so much, right? I mean, it's just, I'm sorry to interrupt, Basiliki, but it's such a beautiful image, because often we can work with, there can be an approach to guiding, which can be kind of historical, right? And we've all experienced that in different places. But the real gift in guiding is to know how that history gives our lives meaning. And sorry, but I just had to reflect on thank you for that, Basiliki.
Well, I think also what you're kind of trying to get at, which I think is amazing, you know, Greece isn't my zone, but Sicily is, and there's a lot of shared Greek history, right? So what I have found fascinating in rereading the Odyssey, for example, and revisiting some of these things that I was taught in school, is that you understand where these ideas come from. I mean, some of these things are just cultural pieces of us that we don't even understand where they come from. I mean, you think about the myth of the Cyclops, for example. We all know about the Cyclops. Everybody knows about the Cyclops, but nobody really knows why they know that. You know, it's sort of like, it's such a part of our culture. And then you go back and you realize all of these things, these stories, these myths were things that the ancient Greeks came up with to explain the world around them. And always within those stories, there is a seed of human truth. You know, there's something, things we fear, things we wish for, our aspirations, things that we understand about the world that maybe we can't put into words. You know, this is the thing I find fascinating about Greek culture, is that it's not just about the surface level. There's always so many levels to it. And as a traveler there, it's not just about learning about that place. It's about learning about yourself. I mean, especially for anybody from the Western world, we don't even realize how much Greek history, Greek philosophy, Greek myths touch everything in our daily lives. I mean, you can't really go through a day without some cultural reference, even a really distant one, right? So anyway, I agree with you, Jesse. That's a long-winded way of saying I agree with you.
No, I think you said that very wonderfully. And Vasiliki, I'll put you on the spot here. What are one of the myths that we're all kind of familiar with that belongs to Naxos Island? Are there myths that we would experience in a different way there than elsewhere, or myths that have their origins there?
Well, there are many stories that are related to the island, but I think that the most famous has to do with Ariadne and the fact that she was abandoned there by God Dionysus, by Theseus, sorry. So she got married to God Dionysus. And I think that this is the most common story. I can say that to you. I can narrate that story. Because it is one of the places in Greece that has the name Ariadne for young girls as a very common name. So you can see actually how, even if we are Christians, because have on your mind that 98% of us in Greece are Greek Christian Orthodox, and religion is something very important to us. Have on your mind that, especially on the islands, we are very religious. Every family has its own church. We have our own private church too. That's why there are so many tiny white chapels on the islands. Okay, they are private family churches. But you can see how the ancient history and the ancient mythology is passing from the one generation to the other, even with the simplest thing, a name. A name that is not a Christian name is a Greek name, but Christianity had to adapt it, as it happened with many other things. So I think that as a child, since that you are swimming in the Aegean Sea, and you are somewhere that is in the heart of the Aegean Sea, and maybe your best friend's name is Ariadne, maybe the first myth that you learn has to do with King Aegean, his son Theseus, the Minotaur, on the island of Crete, the thread that was given to Theseus by Ariadne in order to give him the chance to go through the labyrinth and kill the Minotaur. I believe that this is a story that is familiar. So on the way going there, Theseus had a black sail on his boat, showing that he was going to die. But the agreement with his father was that he was going to have a white sail, so he could change it if he could manage to kill the Minotaur and come back safe. No internet, no phones, no Zoom back then. So the only way to communicate was that. So Ariadne fell in love with Theseus, helped him go through the labyrinth, find his way out with the thread. He killed the Minotaur, and then he got Ariadne, and he started going back to Athens from Crete. But on the way there was a storm, so they had to stop on the island of Naxos. And this is where God Dionysus, the god of the island, saw Ariadne. He fell in love with her. So he convinced, let's say, Theseus to abandon her there. Theseus could not do anything else but obey, because God Dionysus was a god, but he forgot to change the sail. So when his father Aegean saw his son arriving in Athens with a black sail, he believed that his son was not arriving, that he was not on board, he was dead. So as he became devastated, he jumped from the cliffs of Athens in Cape Sunion, and he committed suicide. So this is how we have the Aegean Sea. And then according to the local myth in Naxos, because have on your mind that when we speak about the Greek mythology, it's not like the Bible or the Quran. There is no written book, so every story has many options. The local myth says that Ariadne became so devastated that she married to god Dionysus. She couldn't do anything else, but she was going on that island where the temple of Apollo is today, the gate behind you, because we have to explain to the people that this is an islet that is connected to the mainland at the entrance of the port of Naxos. Okay, so when you arrive to the port, this is the first thing that you see. The gate is there, and the gate is facing the rest of the islands, and especially the island of Delos. So when a boat is coming from Crete or from Athens, the first thing that you see is that gate. So according to the local myth, secures that place, that whoever goes there will always leave a part of his heart and will have to come back. So she wanted Theseus to come back, but because Theseus was not coming back, she also committed suicide, and this is how she became a star. So her crown is the Corona Borealis.
Wow.
So astronomy is connected to that too.
Wow, as Sarah was saying earlier, I mean, there's so many subtle lessons in every turn of that story, and lessons that, you know, are then later reflected, as you say, in both the sky and in the seas and in the islands themselves. Now, I want to turn for a second back to Naxos, really very specifically in terms of Dionysius, because Dionysius is an easy god for us to admire as travelers in a certain sense, because he's the god of wine. Now, why would Naxos be considered his birthplace for the ancient Greeks?
Well, it is not his birthplace, it is the place where he was raised.
Okay.
But because god Dionysius was the son of Zeus and Semele, and god Zeus was married to Hera, so he had to hide the child from Hera. So Naxos, first of all, has many caves, and you can imagine that the caves were always a mysterious place for the people, so they were connecting the caves to the gods. But besides that, Naxos has one of the best climates for the production of wine. So there are vineyards covering a very large part of the island, and it has always been one of the most famous areas for the production of wine. It's just that it is still done the old-fashioned way, no chemicals, nothing like that. And there are not many who bottle the Naxian wine, which means that in order to drink the Naxian wine, you have to go to Naxos. We have a very large production of it, but we consume it here, actually. We don't export it yet, at least, because have on your mind that what makes Naxos unique is that this is a place that has always been for the Greeks. It's not like Mykonos and Santorini that people could not have anything else but tourism. Okay, Naxos is an island where people were always involved in agriculture, mining, and stock raising. It is one of the places in the world that has some of the finest marble qualities, white marble. Our marble is called crystallina because it has crystals. Okay, it is white, it's almost translucent. And have on your mind that Naxos is the beginning of Greek art for using marble, because it is the only place in Europe that has mines of emery. You know the emery boards for the manicure? So emery is the second hardest mineral on earth after the diamond. And they knew that since thousands of years ago, they knew how to use it. So they have become the first sculptors and the first architects who could actually cut marble and give shape to it. So the people were not so much involved with tourism because they had other means of a growing economy. Naxos had always been a place for the Greeks to go, and the Europeans, I can say. And because you were talking about Sicily earlier, there is also the Naxos in Sicily, Giardini di Naxos, because Naxos was such a powerful island that had its own colonies. So of course the colony had the name of the mother island, and that's why we are talking about the Giardini of Naxos, the gardens of Naxos in Sicily. So you can imagine that this is a name that is very famous for the Greeks and maybe the Europeans that were traveling backpacking back in the 60s and the 70s, and they wanted to go to places that were more authentic, I can say, and more family orientated, because Naxos is like that. It's not the crazy party island, because people are not like that, okay? It is an island that people that are the businessmen that have the economy in their hands are the locals who stay there. It's not like in other places that go for the season. They work 9 months and then they go someplace else. Okay, in Naxos, people live there. So this makes a very big difference. And I'm always guiding people that Naxos was recommended to them by someone from Greece, because they could go to an authentic place that was not going to be the crazy touristic place with the souvenir shops everywhere. And
that's Sarah and I were chatting about that the other day, and how I think it's precisely that allows civilization to thrive, which is that instead of that in ancient Athens, for example, it was the fact that the city was small enough but local enough that people were able to kind of become the citizens of the city. That is, that they took control of their own lives. And it's a wonderful reminder of why we like to travel. And so, and why we're visiting Naxos, that is to have that Greek authentic experience. And so as we've been kind of talking generally about the islands and the gods and the mythology and agriculture and mining. Now, when we come to visit here, if we just have a couple of days on our Greek island tour, what would you recommend we do? What are the experiences that we might look forward to having?
So Naxos has also this kind of good thing that is big enough not to get bored, but small enough to see it in a few days. So you cannot just see, you can also do things. I mean that the locals always do something, so you can get involved in their lives. What I usually recommend to people to do is to be able to drive in the mainland of Naxos and leave maybe the beaches with the big hotels behind them, because we have very nice waters, crystal clear waters that everybody wants to come and swim. But besides swimming, that is very nice too, you can go and see, first of all parts of Greek history. When I was in university, our teachers were always telling us that the two places in Greece where you can go and see monuments from all the periods of Greek history in a good condition, well preserved, is Crete and Naxos. Going to Crete, though, means that you will spend there something like 20 days, because Crete is one of the biggest islands in the world, okay? Naxos is a place where you can see all that, you can visit all that in 1-2 days, okay? So you can see next to the modern marble quarries, you can see the ancient marble quarries. You can see how people work with marble today and how they started working with marble thousands of years ago. You can drive through the biggest olive grove of the Cyclades, which is at the same time the oldest one. And it is one of the oldest in the world. We have one of the 2 oldest olive trees in the world. So
how old is that olive tree approximately?
About 6,000 years old. It's the same age with the olive tree in Crete. These two are the oldest in the world. So you can imagine that you can go and visit ancient temples. You can go and see huge statues that are still laying in the quarry. This is something that we don't have in other places. So you can actually see behind the piece of art, the technology, okay? How people could think to cut the marble, how they could roll it, how they could take it from the quarry, take it from the mountain, and turn it into these fabulous statues that we see all around the world today. So you can see historical places, but you can also experience the everyday life in a village where people are still farmers, where people are still producing their own things. Cheese is a very big thing for us. Have on your mind that Greece is the second country after France that has such a large variety of cheeses that have a certification. And Naxos is one of the most famous places in Greece. I think that the Greeks discovered Naxos because they knew the Naxian food. Talking about back in the 80s, that it was not very easy to travel, but products were traveling. Everybody knew the Naxian potatoes, the Naxian wine, and of course, the Naxian cheeses. In every good meal, you had something from Naxos. So this was the best advertising of the island.
Well, I was going to say, speaking of food, I know that one of the activities we have planned when we arrive there is a food tour, which is in the capital of Naxos. And Sarah, you'll appreciate this because it's also an old, if I'm not mistaken, it's also an old Venetian town, yes. Which is one of, again, Sarah's great loves.
Naxos was actually the capital. Have on your mind that Venice, of course, was the greatest power back in the 13th century, and the Venetians managed to occupy Constantinople, which is today Istanbul, back in 1204. So during the Fourth Crusade, instead of going down to Jerusalem, they went up to Istanbul, to Constantinople. So after the occupation of Constantinople, they decided to occupy the Aegean Sea. And their leader wanted to occupy Naxos no matter what. Imagine that he managed to occupy all the other islands around Naxos, all 27 of them. But in Naxos, the resistance was very strong. So they had to stay outside the Byzantine castle for 40 days. And his people started nagging, they became tired, they wanted to leave. But because Naxos has the most strategic location in the Aegean, and because Naxos is a self-sufficient island, and he knew that if you could not occupy that, it could have been like occupying nothing, because then the Naxians could attack the rest of the islands and take, let's say, the power back. He decided to burn the boats of the people who followed him during the night. And this is how he made them understand that they will either die there or they will conquer the island. So this is how Naxos was taken by Venice in 1207. And because of all these reasons, it became the capital. So it's a beautiful castle town with embassies, with beautiful schools, the Ursuline school, the Jesuit school, that are still there. The crests of the old families like the Grimaldi family, the palace, the Catholic cathedral that dates back 1207. And it is the only castle in Greece that is still inhabited by the descendants of the people who created that, because the Venetians never left. Okay, they are still here for 800 years. They still stay in the same houses. And it is a castle that was never destroyed and never abandoned. So the castle is on the top, and the locals have, let's say, their settlements around it. And this is again at the entrance of the port.
Again, and I think that's such a beautiful image, Vasiliki, of what we hope to experience when we travel, and that's these connections that bring us back 800 years, and in this case, by the families who actually have been living consecutively in this same castle. And I love that. I just have one last question for you before we wrap things up, and Sarah may have a question as well, but I want to return to this olive tree, because you said that that really the harvest is one of the cultural traditions and routines that gives meaning to Greek culture. And I want to know, does this approximately 6,000-year-old olive tree, does it still produce olives?
Yes, of course it does. That's why it is the symbol of eternity, the olive tree.
I rest my case. Greece is such a wonderful, beautiful place. And that ongoing kind of abundance, which is there, again, in not only an image of peace, and of course, that's what an olive branch is, and wisdom, and the image of the tree of Athena, but also one that's still producing. So I'll see if Sarah has any other questions here. But thank you so much, Basiliki, for sharing these beautiful images with us.
I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I just think that one of the things most people don't understand about Greece, which I think you really brought out today, was that Greece is not just one country in the sense that it is connected to Italy, it is connected to Turkey, it is connected to North Africa. It really is sort of the kind of heart from which a lot of things radiate in Europe. So if you haven't been to Greece, you really need to put that on your list, because it really is the underpinnings of so many things that we understand in our modern world. Even if you've never left the United States, you are still operating on a Greek operating system in a lot of ways. Democracy, for example. So I highly recommend putting Greece on your list, and the islands absolutely are on my list. I haven't gotten out to many islands, so hopefully I might see you in person this summer. I'm thinking about taking my son with me and going and exploring some of the islands in the summer.
Well, if you do want to come to Greece, I would just want to put this out there. Yep. We still have a couple of spots on our tour that's departing on April 27th, and we'll be visiting Naxos with Basiliki. So please take a look, join us as we have this living experience, this spring.
That sounds absolutely fantastic. So yes, if you want to join Jesse, you can find him at alethiatravel.com, which we'll put the link into the comments. And you're going to offer the tour again in the fall, is that correct?
Yeah, we will. We'll offer the tour is also there in the fall. So.
And just a little pitch for Jesse, for traveling with Jesse. As you can tell, he and I always have fabulous conversations. If you're interested in traveling and having a slightly deeper experience than maybe you would on a more traditional tour company package, Jesse's the person to travel with. You'll always have a great conversation with him no matter where he takes you. So thank you so much. Basiliki, it's been wonderful to meet you. I hope I get a chance to meet you in person sometime very soon. And as always, Jesse, it's a pleasure. And so tomorrow, Jesse's going to take us to Greece with a slideshow. So please join us back here 10 o'clock tomorrow. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, so 10 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow, we'll do a little slideshow, and you get to do some armchair traveling to visit all these beautiful places we've been talking about. So if you have questions about your own trip to Greece, if you need some tips or some help with that, please put some comments into this video, and Jesse will definitely be able to get back to you and help you with those questions. So thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Thank you, everyone.